Hi, welcome everyone. Today's webinar will be about the RootsFinder web clipper. The clipper is a really cool new tool that speeds up genealogy data entry and helps you gather all the information from a record and bring it into your RootsFinder tree efficiently. It also helps you take an evidence-based approach to data entry that's going to help you look at the facts and events in terms of genealogical evidence. Evidence is the tentative answer to a genealogical question. So as you look at documents, you're asking what, if any, question is this document answering? That's evidence it's giving you, and that's what we want you to focus on at RootsFinder. We'll have another lecture about the genealogical proof standard and evidence, but I want to talk a lot about that in this webinar as well because it's important. So here's what I'm planning to cover. We're going to do a general overview of the clipper, including how to install it, launch it, switch away from it, and then come back. Then we'll do a deep dive into the web clipper sections. We'll talk about the primary event type, the event details, the source and its citation, people and evidence, so tagging people, profile updates, and then I'll demonstrate some examples of using the clipper in different scenarios. We'll look at a hint to a record at Findmypast. We'll clip a census from Ancestry.com. We'll look at a record that was indexed at FamilySearch but whose full content is on Find a Grave. And then finally, we'll do a non-indexed site. And then last but not least, I'll talk a little bit about using the clipper on a public computer, like at a family history center or at a public library. So, to get started, let me point out that the clipper only works on Chrome at this time. Whether it's Chrome for Windows or Chrome for Mac doesn't matter. It just needs to be Chrome or a browser that can use Chrome extensions like Vivaldi. Then the first thing you need to do is install the browser extension. To do that, click Apps in the left-hand menu at RootsFinder. Then click RootsFinder Web Clipper for Chrome. That will open up the extension in the Chrome store. Then go ahead and install it. And the first time you use the clipper, you'll need to log into your RootsFinder account using your email address and password. After that first time, you won't need to use your information unless you log out of the clipper, which we'll talk about more at the end of the webinar. Let me show you some basic things about using the clipper before we start getting into a lot of detail. Here I have an example of something I might want to add to my tree. To clip it, I click the browser extension up here in the right-hand corner. That launches the clipper. Then I just scoot it over here to the side so I can see everything. Now, when I come over here to tag this to someone in my tree, I may need to refer back to my tree for something. If I have my RootsFinder tree open already, I just click over here to that tab. Now, when I click back to the record, it looks like the clipper's gone. Actually, it's just floating in the background. So to get it back on a Windows computer, I just hit Alt-Tab, and now it's back. And so then alternatively, I can hover over the toolbar like this, look for the RootsFinder icon, and click it. That also brings the clipper back into focus. So now let's look at each of these clipper sections in detail. When you first open the clipper, it actually puts you on the first tab because that's typically the first place it wants you to do anything. Because if you click over here on one type, you'll see that most of the time it takes the first step for you, which is to define the primary event type. So let's look at this tab in more detail. This tab is asking you, what is the primary event you're putting on someone's timeline? So in terms of evidence analysis, you're asking, why was the document you're looking at generated? What was the primary event or reason why whatever it is you're clipping was created? What prompted someone to write this down? The answer is the beginning of your data entry and your evidence analysis. Here on the left, you have the most common vital event types. You have birth, christening and baptism, marriage, divorce, death, and burial. So these were things that happened to someone that caused a document to be made. Then here under those vital events, you have an option for non-specific sources like family history books, general databases, things that are just sources, not events. And over here on the right, you have some other event types including census/residence, immigration and immigration, military, naming, occupation, probate, religion, will, and then other. If you click this circle for other and then click inside the box to define it, you'll see a list of suggested other types like address, adoption, etc. You're not limited to these event types. You can type something else in here, but these are the most common types RootsFinder has already been programmed to work with. When the Clipper is working with index data from a major genealogy website, it should be able to automatically assign the primary event type for you. But you might want to click over here to check it just to be sure you agree. In this case, it was a draft registration. So I'm going to put that back in. I just took it out to show you what all was in there. One thing I also want to point out while we're here at the beginning, down here in the lower left, you'll see the name of your tree. By default, this is the last tree you are working with. If you want to clip this into another tree at RootsFinder, just click here, scroll through the trees, and select the tree you want to work with. Now, the next tab is 2, Details. These are details about the primary event, the main reason why the document was generated in the first place. So you have the event date. What was the date this document was created or that the primary event took place? In the place, you put where the event took place or where the document was created. This field has a drop-down list of suggested places. The suggestions come from an open source genealogical place list at WeRelate. So if you ever have questions about suggested places, head over to WeRelate and look at the place database. If you have time, feel free to help with locations there. I know they really appreciate help building and maintaining the place database. So then under the date and place, you have fact details and place details. This is where you put additional information about the fact or the place. In this case, I could put World War I draft registration as a fact detail, and if I knew the registration precinct, I could put that over here as a place detail. Here in the media section, I could come back over here to FamilySearch and get the image. I can download it to my computer and then re-upload it to RootsFinder so it stays with the data. But one thing I will point out is that in addition to the upload button here, which will let you browse your computer for files, you could also drop files right onto this target zone here if they're already on your computer and if you want to do multiple files at once. Another interesting thing you can do is you can copy an image and then paste it in here. This is a cool little shortcut for screenshots in Windows. You can push the print screen button, then click inside this little drop zone and push Control V, and then it will paste in a screenshot for you that then you can crop as needed. So that's cool. And so then I could just keep adding images if I have more pages. Then down here we have the notes area where you can put notes, transcriptions, etc. You can put in tables, formatting, links, just whatever you need. Here again, the clipper will automatically copy in whatever it can for you. Then on the next tab for source, up here we have a place for the source title. When you're using the clipper, most of the time there isn't really a title field in the source that the clipper can grab, so a lot of times this is blank, and that's okay because RootsFinder will use the beginning of the citation if there's no source title. But you may want to put your own title in here. It can be as formal or informal as you want. Just make it something that you will understand when you're looking at a list of 1,000 or more sources. Then here in the URL field, the clipper will automatically grab this for you if it can, or you can paste it in. And then here you have a place for the source page and the source date. And then finally down here, the clipper will paste in whatever it can for the citation for you. You can go with this, you can change it, or you can completely replace it with your own citation. It's up to you. Okay, now here on the people tag, this is how you tell the clipper where you want to file the information in this source. Again, the clipper will put in whatever it can for you. It works from the details that have been indexed by the site. So I recommend verifying the information against the original document wherever possible. It's a garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. If it was transcribed wrong, then the clipper can only work with the transcription and it's going to pull the wrong transcription for you. So I recommend you always check it just to verify. Then to tag someone, you want to start typing their name and then select them from the list. This list is coming from the currently selected tree. So again, if you look down here in the bottom left corner, you can change the tree you're working with if you realize you're in the wrong tree. If the person you're looking for is not in your list here, there are a few possible reasons. The first possible reason is that they might be listed under a different name, a different spelling, or just a completely different name. So you might want to click over to your RootsFinder tree and do a search for them. You can search at the top here, or you can search over here in the list of people. The top search is just a search of names. The list of people is a more flexible search. It searches more than just the names. The reason I'm pointing this out is that I had an example just the other day where I was looking at a record and I thought, Bedwell, I've seen that. That's important, but I don't remember why. And I searched Bedwell at the top here and there was nothing. But then I searched over in my people list and it came up with a match for me where I had written in the notes that her maiden name might have been Bedwell. So that could be a helpful trick for you to know. The other reason why someone might not be in your list when you try to tag them is that maybe they really aren't in your tree. In that case, you can easily add them right here by typing their name the way you want it to appear in your database and clicking New. Now, when you save this clipping, RootsFinder will create a new person with this name and attach the information to their page. In this case, Roscoe's already in my tree, so I'm going to select him. So now I want to go through the information that got clipped. I see his name was Roscoe Conkling Hill. This was a military event, but I don't like this date. Although technically correct, there's probably a better date on the card image, so let's check. Yep, over here on the right, it has a date of registration of 12 September 1918. So I'm going to get the clipper back and add that. I'm going to standardize this location while I'm here. And now I'm going to go back to the primary event information and correct that index date. It should be 12 September 1918. But of course, these weren't all transcribed with their individual card dates, so the clipper couldn't have known that when it processed this. Okay, and actually it looks like there's some more information I could enter here that didn't get indexed by FamilySearch. We have his residence, which is hard to read, but I happen to know that it says 329 East Cache La Poudre Street, Colorado Springs, El Paso, Colorado. Now here I could put in the date, but I don't need to because it's the same as the primary event date. So I can just leave this blank and RootsFinder will assume it's the same. His age is 43. Occupation, Superintendent of Schools, District 11 in Colorado Springs. I also have his physical description over there on this side of the card. It has his height medium and stocky build, gray-blue eyes, and dark brown hair. Now, if there were more people mentioned here, I would go through and do the same thing for each person mentioned in the record. So for now, we're ready to go on to tab 5, Profiles. Here the clipper is giving you the opportunity to update the header area of a person page with this potentially new information. It's putting the profile header information side by side with this record information so you can choose what you want that header area to say. If you want to change something, slide this little switch. Otherwise, just leave it alone. In this case, I do want to update Roscoe's header information, so I slide the switch. I click Save, and the clipper will then add all of this information to Roscoe's page and update his header. So now let's look at some examples of the clipper in action in various scenarios. The first scenario is where I've received a hint in my RootsFinder tree for a record at Findmypast. Here I have a match for Anton Levi Peterson in the Utah Salt Lake County death records 1908 to 1949 at Findmypast. I'm going to click the hyperlink here and then review the record. Yep, this is my guy. So now to accept this hint, I'm going to clip this into my tree. I click the icon up here in the extensions and then scoot this over. I see the primary event type, death. Then in the details, it looks like I have a date 1930. That's okay, but it looks like the clipper is only getting the death year field, not the death date. I'm going to add the month and day here. And then also, whenever you see something like this, please let us know so we can improve the clipper. Okay, there's no additional fact, place, or detail media that I want to attach. Scrolling down, I see that it copied in the database information here, which is great. So now I'm in the source, and I'm just going to give this a title. And then I'm also going to augment this citation a little because I'm a little picky about my citations. Okay, so then here in the people section, I'm going to tag Anton Levi Peterson and review these facts. I see his name, birth year, but it looks like it didn't get the birth location, so I'm just going to add that really quickly. I have gender, and then one other thing I want to add is his age. I could just go with the birth year provided on the death certificate, but I just like to be thorough. Now, here I have Anton's parents, John C. Peterson, and it looks like I don't actually have them in this tree yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add him, and I'm going to do the same thing here for his mother. And that's that. Now I'm going to review the header information, and there's nothing there I want to change. So now I'm just going to click Save, and now his parents have been added along with all the other information in the record. So, okay, now let's look at a record at Ancestry.com. I've done a search for Anton in the 1900 census, and this looks like a good match for him. So I'm going to click View Record and look at the transcription. Yep, this is my guy. So I'm going to click the clipper and then review what got clipped. I have a census/residence primary event with a date of 1900 in Snowsville, Box Elder. This actually should be Snowville. So I'm just going to correct that to the standardized location. If I wanted to, I could upload the media file here, but for now, I'm going to skip that. I'm reviewing the abstract here, and that all looks good. So now I go to the citation. I'm just going to give this a source title, 1900 United States Federal Census, Utah, Box Elder County. And then I'm going to move on to the people. I'm going to tag Anton, look at his details, and then I'm going to tag Elizabeth, who is in my tree as Elizabeth Ann Arbin. And then I'm going to tag all the kids. As I need to verify and figure out who some of these kids are, I'm just going to flip back and forth to my RootsFinder tab and then get the clipper back with Alt-Tab. Normally I would have these two screens side by side on my two monitors, but the webinar won't show both monitors, so I'm just working from the one screen here. So I'm just going back and forth to place these kids correctly in the family here because I want to make sure I get this tagged to the right people because this is evidence about them and I want it attached to the right profile. Okay, so now one thing I want to point out is that the clipper can only process what's on screen. So since all I can see is the ages for the kids, I'm not getting their birth month and year as was reported on the census. So I'm also going to open up the image here in a new tab so I can get that additional information. So now I'm just going to go in and add all that for all the kids. I bring the clipper over here to this screen by clicking Alt-Tab, and then I just go down the list and add all of these birth months and years that are given in the 1900 census. I love the 1900 census. You get so much interesting information here. I'm just going to go down and keep adding. Okay, while I'm at it here, I'm also going to add occupation farmer for Anton and farm laborer for John. And then I'm also going to add a marriage year for Anton and Elizabeth. And now I click Next to review the profile information. And there's nothing I want to change. So I just click Save, and now I'm done. I've entered information about 11 people all at once. Cool. Okay, so now let's look at an example where I found something at FamilySearch, but it was just an index. The actual record came from another site. Here I have Anton Levi Peterson in the Find a Grave index. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to clip this index because it reflects my research journey. So I just click the clipper, review the information, tag him, and save. Now I'm also going to click Visit Partner Site here and see what information was contained at the partner site, which is Find a Grave. Here I have lots of information that wasn't on the FamilySearch index. Find a Grave happens to be one of the major genealogy sites the clipper can read, so I'm going to click that and then see what all it gathered. I have a primary event of death. The death date 6 May 1930 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Good. I already have both of these pictures, but if I wanted to include them, I could just download them to my computer and then attach them using the media button here. So then I look at the source information. I'm just going to add the title like I usually do. It makes sense to me. And then I'm moving over here to the People tab. The clipper has automatically added all the other people on the page for me, which saves me a ton of time. Now I'm just going to go through them and tag them to people in my tree and specify the relationship. I have Anton's father as Jürgen Christian Peterson, and he's not in my database. So I could go ahead and create a new person here, but first I want to see what my tree had said about Anton's father. So clicking back over here to my tree, I see that I have John C. Peterson, and that makes sense. Anton's father probably went by an anglicized version of Jürgen when he immigrated. So I'm actually going to tag John C. Peterson and then leave the name down here as Jürgen because that's what the record says. That's the evidence. When you ask what was his name, this document is telling you the evidence. The answer is that it was Jürgen. So then later on, you can evaluate the evidence and say, okay, what was generated by someone who is more likely to know? What was generated closer to the time of the event? And you have all of your breadcrumbs there that you can evaluate and pick up the pieces of the evidence to analyze later. Okay, so next I have his mother, Nicolene. Looks like it's spelled with an H in my database. And then I have wife, Elizabeth Ann Arbin.